What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Mock Draft Guy YouTube channel. And in today's video, I have the Mac Daddy of them all for you guys. The biggest and craziest video I have ever taken on. This is my record predictions for all 134 FBS teams for the 2024-25 college football season. And of course, we are going to be including the 12-team playoff bracket predictions in this one as well. This was an insane video to do, so really, before we get into it, if you guys could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, there is so much more content coming out with college football coming closer. We will be doing college football prospect profiles for the 2025 NFL Draft, NFL content, of course, as always. But this has been the most time-consuming video I have ever done because I really did go into every single division conference, if you will, and just really deep dive on every single team. This was exhausting, but I had a lot of fun doing this. And real quick, before we get into this, this is not going to be a video where I analyze every single team for 134 teams. I know you guys aren't going to want to sit through that. I'm not going to want to speak that much as well. So a lot of these, especially the smaller conferences, we're going to kind of glaze over the teams itself. And that's really it. Once we get to the bigger conferences like the MAC, of course, I'm just playing. Now, once we get to the ACC, the Big 10, Big 12, SEC, we will dive a little bit further into that. But without further delay, let's get into it. So the first I want to tackle are the independents. So you see here, there are 3 independents for the 2024-25 college football season. Of course, you have Notre Dame, you have UMass, and you have UConn as well. I believe UMass, now I don't remember off the top of my head what conference they're joining in 2025. I don't want to say Conference USA. I don't remember. It's either Conference USA, the ACC, or one of those other smaller conferences. But I know for a fact that they are joining a conference in 2025. So for the time being, this is their last year as an independent. But I will analyze these a little bit more because there's only 3 teams here. But we have Notre Dame at 10-2, and that's a soft 10-2. This team could easily go 11-1. They really only have 2 difficult teams on their schedule for the most part. I know that week 1 could be a potential loss against Texas A&M. That's one of their toughest opponents of the entire year up until about week 9 or 10. I don't remember who else they're playing, but it could be a loss there as well. So this team could easily go 11-1 and is basically a shoo-in for the college football playoffs if they do go 11-1. So this is a soft 10-2. UMass, what could I say? UMass is just a team that ever since they've come to the FBS, they have just not done well at all. And really looking at their schedule, there's only 2 teams against some super soft FCS opponents that I think that they could win. Other than that, they're just going to continue to be in mid to bad purgatory for their entire time in the FBS. And then UConn actually, I think, could go bowling this year as well. I believe last year they went 7-6 after 13 games, if I'm not mistaken. And they have a pretty soft schedule again this year. There's a lot of softer opponents scheduled towards the end of the season as well. So 6-6 is soft. It's cautious because it is UConn at the end of the day. They're not a great football program either, but they could make some noise for sure during bowl season. And this is a team that, honestly, with how easy the schedule is for them, I could even see them going 7-5, maybe even 8-4 if they, play well above what they're probably going to play. But yeah, UConn, I think, is a solid 6-6 option. So those are our 3 independents. Now we're going to move to conference play. And the first conference I have here is a little Maction. Let's get started with a little Maction. Honestly, one of the most fun conferences to watch. And that's so silly, it feels like, coming from, a conference with these teams in it. And that's no disrespect to them. But going from the bottom to the top here, Kent State at 2-10, Akron at 3-9. Teams that maybe will make slight moves in the right direction in the next 5 years or so, but nothing too crazy there. Buffalo at 4-8, Ball State at 4-8, Western Michigan and Eastern Michigan at 5-7, Ohio at 5-7. I believe they won 9 or 10 games last year. I could be totally wrong on that. 9 or 10 or something around that area, because I remember them playing in a bowl, and I remember them having close to double-digit wins, if I'm not mistaken. But they did lose a lot to the transfer portal, and they didn't really replace a lot of their talented players. Curtis Rourke, I believe, is the main guy, the quarterback. He transferred to Indiana, so I think Ohio takes a step back. Northern Illinois at 6-6, Central Michigan at 6-6, Bowling Green at 7-5, Toledo in the MAC championship at 8-4. and then Miami of Ohio, of course, in the MAC championship as well at 10-2. So obviously, as this goes along, if you notice, the top two teams will have 13 games played because I included the championship game for the conference in it as well. I do have the Miami Redhawks winning the MAC for the second straight year. It was a surprise last year, but a lot of returning players on offense and defense as well. Their defense looks super, super solid. So I think that Miami should really have no trouble in conference play and in winning the division overall. So the Miami Redhawks are your back-to-back MAC champions here. Moving over to the Sun Belt Conference here. This is the only conference remaining in the FBS that has two separate divisions. So we will look at the West Division first here. At the bottom, we have Georgia State, who I failed to, now that I'm looking at it, I failed to put their record. It is, so I guess it's a FBS prediction for 133 teams. I'm sure we'll see that as well as we're going along for another one or two teams. But Georgia State, I believe I had it 3-9. I actually could check my notes. I have them right here next to me. Georgia State was okay. I had Georgia State at 2-10, Georgia Southern at 4-8, Old Dominion at 5-7, Coastal Carolina at 6-6, Marshall at 7-5, JMU at 8-4, missing out on a conference championship appearance, and then Appalachian State at 10-2 at the top of the West. Moving over to the East, we have Louisiana Monroe, who is honestly the worst college football team I've seen in a really, really long time, and that's I mean, no disrespect, they're just really, really terrible. Southern Miss at 4-8, South Alabama at 6-6, Troy at 7-5, Louisiana at 7-5, and the reason I have Louisiana so high is their schedule is really, really easy. They miss a lot of tough conference games this year, so I think that they could capitalize on that and have a pretty solid season in the Sun Belt, and then make a bowl appearance as well. Arkansas State at 8-4, and then Texas State at 10-2. Texas State, they got Jordan McLeod from James Madison. He's going to step in as their starting quarterback. They have a lot of returning players as well. They won the Sun Belt last year. I fully expect them, even against a tougher opponent, in my opinion, Appalachian State in the Sun Belt Championship. I think Texas State does win it and has a super solid 11-2 season. Moving on now, we have Conference USA here. And this is the smallest conference in the FBS with 10 teams. Remember when 10 teams used to be a normal conference? Yeah, me too. Anyway, we have New Mexico State at number 10 in the conference at 2-10. Kennesaw State with their FBS season debut, I believe, going at 2-10 as well. It's going to be a rough transition for them going from the FCS to the FBS, but this is a super solid conference for them. A couple years of solid recruiting. I do believe Kennesaw State could be in that middling conference, in the middling of the conference there. UTEP at 4-8. UTEP just really, I feel like, lost a lot of decent players for the most part. One that you think off the top of your head, Tyrese Knight to the NFL draft as well, a quarterback of that defense, tough to replace. Middle Tennessee State at 5-7. Sam Houston State in their second season in the FBS, making a ton of progress here at 5-7. Florida International University at 5-7. Louisiana Tech at 6-6. Jacksonville State might be the big surprise here for a lot of people, but I think that they have a super solid offense. Their offensive line is great. 7-5 for them. Western Kentucky in the conference championship game at 10-2, and then Liberty as well at 10-2 in the conference championship game. And I give the edge to Liberty. Liberty is a team that honestly could go 13-0 and potentially have a bid to make the college football playoffs. They have a super cakewalk schedule. You thought Notre Dame's schedule was easy. You thought Louisiana's was easy. You got to take a look at Liberty's schedule. It is super easy. So of course that is a tentative 10-2. I do think eventually, hint towards the end of this video, I do believe that Liberty miss out on the college football playoffs just due to that super easy schedule that they do possess. But I do think Liberty wins the Conference USA. Moving on to the AAC, we have Charlotte at 2-10 at the bottom of the division, Temple at 3-9, Rice at 4-8, Navy at 4-8, UAB at 5-7. That might be a surprise for a lot of people. Super tough schedule for them as well, but they're a scrappy bunch. I do think that they could muster up 5 wins. They have a couple games against some super easy opponents, so that could build some confidence along the way. Army at 5-7. I feel like Army is just that team that every year can either go 4-8 or 8-4. It just depends. Not really a lot of recruiting you could do there. Florida Atlantic University in their second season in the AAC at 5-7. East Carolina at 6-6. Same thing with Tulsa. North Texas at 7-5. Tulane take a step back at 7-5. Again, another tough schedule and lost a lot of players from last year as well. Obviously, Michael Pratt being the biggest loss. Quarterback was drafted in the 7th round, I want to say, to the Green Bay Packers. UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio at 8-4. University of South Florida making the conference championship game at 8-4. UTSA just missing out. And then Memphis at 10-2 at the top. I do have Memphis coming out on top, and I think that this is a super easy conference for Memphis. They have some unbelievable NFL pro-ready prospects. Seth Hennigan, of course, is a huge favorite of mine. If you guys haven't checked out my top 20 quarterbacks for the 2025 NFL draft class, my preseason edition, Seth Hennigan is pretty high up there for me. I love his game. They have some great pieces on defense as well. And for me, this is just a man amongst boys in this conference here. Same thing with USF. I think that they have a really solid squad as well. UTSA is another team that I could easily see in the conference championship game. But I give the nod in conference record to USF, and then Memphis, like I said, is just going to steamroll a lot of these teams, in my opinion. Moving on to the Mountain West here. So right over here, if you guys can see on the right-hand side, I included the Pac-2, and that is just really, really sad because the Pac-2 is in agreement with the Mountain West Conference. They are going to be playing the majority of their games against Mountain West Conference opponents, I believe. I don't remember if it's 6 or 8 games that they're playing against Mountain West, but they're essentially, without being in the Mountain West, they are essentially Mountain West teams for this year. I don't know what their future holds, but I do have Oregon State at 8-4. Tough to replace some of the players that they lost. Washington State as well at 6-6, post Cam Ward era. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Moving on to the actual Mountain West Conference here from bottom to top. Nevada is a team that is just, they've been really bad the last few years. What are they like? 5-35 or so? I don't remember. It was something insane. One of my favorite YouTubers, Bengal, if you guys watch College Football 25 or Madden Rebuilds and stuff, that is the team that he overtook for his YouTube series, his YouTube dynasty. And I don't remember what he said the number was, but over the past 5 years, they've been pretty atrocious. Same thing with New Mexico. Hawaii is a team that a lot of people could see win 6 or 7 games. I can't see that at all. San Jose State lost a lot of NFL pieces over the last few years. I think that they take a step back as well. San Diego State at 5-7, Utah State at 5-7. Air Force is a team that, again, has a super tough schedule, and I think the caliber of their team is much worse than last year. 6-6 for them. Wyoming at 7-5. Colorado State might be the surprise here. I just think that Torrey Horton on that offense is just, he's one of my favorite wide receivers in the entire college football and in the entire 2025 NFL draft class for next year. Fresno State at 8-4. UNLV is a team that I think can make a lot of noise, making the conference championship game at 9-3. Excuse me. UNLV, they got Ricky White. Matthew Sluka from Holy Cross was a transfer that's going to come in and play quarterback. Tony Grimes as well, I believe, as a cornerback. They have some really nice pieces, and they can make a lot of noise. A lot of people would have Fresno State in the conference championship game over UNLV, but I love what they did in the transfer portal, and I think that they're going to make some real noise. And then, of course, Boise State has just such an incredible squad, in my opinion, making the championship game at 9-3, and then eventually winning the Mountain West. And I think, don't quote me here, I think that this will be enough to get them into the college football playoffs. Crazy enough. Moving on to the ACC here. 17 teams in the ACC. It's absolutely crazy. We have Virginia at the bottom at 2-10. They just didn't really do enough for me in the offseason. I believe they went 3-9 last year. Didn't do enough for me to improve. Their roster is just not great. They had the worst record in the ACC in conference play last year as well. I fully expect that to happen again. Stanford, a newcomer in the ACC this year, I believe is going to have a rough transition, but they had a great recruiting class coming over. So I think over time, over the next couple of years, we will start to see Stanford get a lot better. But for a team that haven't won 5 or more games, and I believe it's 4 or 5 years, I can't see them moving to a conference like this and being better. So I think it's going to get a little worse before it gets better, but they have a bright future. Boston College at 3-9, Wake Forest at 4-8, Pitt at 5-7, newcomers Cal. I think, again, another team with a really tough schedule in a transitional year. It's going to be tough for them. They do have Jaden Ott that they could lean on quite heavily, so it'll be interesting to see how he plays against SEC, ACC opponents. But Cal, I think, is going to have a rough go of it in their first year at 5-7. Georgia Tech is a team that I feel like can go 9-3 or 3-9. They are so tough to project. I have them at a very safe 7-5. Virginia Tech, the same thing at 7-5. Duke and SMU. SMU is a newcomer to the ACC as well. I love Preston Stone. I think he's going to make some real noise in this conference. I'm super excited to see how he does. North Carolina at 8-4. Syracuse might be the surprise here at 8-4. If you have any questions as why I have them so high, just look at their schedule. This is the basement for their 12 games, in my opinion. 8-4 is the absolute worst they should do, especially with Kyle McCord coming in there as well. They have a couple of decent pieces on offense. For them to be 8-4 is almost sad. I feel like their schedule is one of the easiest in the entire FBS, so this is a floor for them. They should, if they play great, if Kyle McCord plays as good as some people think he is, they could go 9-3, 10-2. So don't sleep on Syracuse. Louisville at 8-4 as well, coming off of an ACC conference appearance. I think they do take a slight step back, but they're still a super solid squad. Clemson as well, I think, just misses out for the most part on the ACC championship game. NC State is a team that I think is finally going to take a step in the right direction and be that next powerhouse in the ACC. They have some great recruits. They had a great transfer period as well. They have a really, really solid squad. And I think, unfortunately, due to conference record, they just missed out on the conference championship game. And that's going to be Miami at 10-2 and Florida State at 11-1. I really wanted to make Florida State undefeated again. I just think going back-to-back 2 years undefeated is really, really difficult. I don't know, especially after losing Jordan Travis, I don't really know if that's feasible for them, to be quite honest with you. But at the same time, I do think they get the job done over Miami. And I think Florida State's out for blood this year. After going 13-0, basically after the regular season and the conference championship game, missing out on the college football playoffs, I think they're going to come in with a big chip on their shoulder. And I think that they are going to dominate most of their ACC opponents. So they win the ACC championship game, in my opinion. Moving on to the Big 10, or the Big 18, I guess we could say here. This is just... You want to talk about a school that has some bad luck, take a look at Purdue's schedule. I believe that they have, ranked in the preseason, I think they have 5 matchups against top 10 teams. It's just absolutely brutal. I can't see them winning more than one game, 1-2 tops. It's just brutal for them. Same thing, Northwestern, I think, takes a step back. Minnesota at 4-8, I think this is a really big year for them. But, I mean, just with the influx of teams and the competition, I think it's going to be super tough for some of these teams to get going. UCLA is another team that might be a surprise at 4-8, but they have a very, very daunting schedule as well. And it's a big moving from the Pac-12 to the Big 10 is just a huge, huge transition for me. And I think that UCLA is going to be one of those teams that has a real tough time doing it. Michigan State at 5-7, Indiana 5-7 as well. You got Curtis Work through the transfer portal. It should be okay. Illinois, Brett Bielema does a really good job to guide this squad to a 6-6 record. I don't think Luke Altmaier is good at all. Don't know how he still has a starting spot. Rutgers at 6-6, I feel like is really respectable. I think that they could win 7 or 8 games, honestly. And I don't want to sound crazy. They could really rely on Kyle Monangai there in the backfield to carry their offense. Maryland at 7-5, Nebraska and Wisconsin tied at 7-5 as well. That's pretty tentative for both of those teams. I do think that Nebraska could be better. They also could be worse, and it's the same with Wisconsin too. These are 2 massive programs that are kind of in the middle of a rebuilding period, and I think they're both slowly but surely starting to come out of that rebuilding period. Then you have Washington taking obviously a massive step back from being in the national championship game last year to being 8-4. They just lost an unbelievable amount of talent to the NFL draft, and it's really, really tough to keep up. They also lost their head coach as well. So I think it's going to be a tough transitional period, but they do have some pretty easy games in there that I think they could win. USC at 8-4, Iowa at 8-4 as well. Michigan at 9-3. Yeah, it's kind of the same deal with Washington. I know Michigan is an unbelievable program. I think it's going to be a rough transitional year for them. after the Jim Harbaugh era, after losing so much talent to the NFL draft, I do think they take a transitional year. Call me crazy. Penn State at 10-2, Oregon making the Big Ten championship game at 11-1 in their debut season in the Big Ten. Let's face it, Oregon had one of the craziest influx of talent of any team in college football through the transfer portal and through recruitment. I think that they're going to be sensational this year. And then, of course, Ohio State is basically like an NFL team in college. I feel like all their stars are over 22 years old. They all should be in the NFL at this point. They had so many returning players. The backfield itself is unbelievable. Rashawn Judkins, Travion Henderson, an unbelievable backfield. The defense is unreal. This team, I think, is going to cruise to a 13-0 finish and win the Big Ten championship game. Even against a super tough opponent in Oregon, I just think this team is jam-packed with NFL talent, and I don't think that they're going to lose a single game in regular season and conference play. So we go over to the Big 12. This might be another surprise for some of you guys here, in my opinion. 16 teams in the Big 12 this year. Cincinnati at 3-9. I feel like, again, similar to some of the other teams at the bottom of the schedule, I don't think that they're going to be able to handle the influx of talented teams really, really well. Same thing with Houston. A lot of guys are high on Donovan Smith as a quarterback. I think he has all the tools. I just haven't seen him put it together yet. Houston doesn't have the... They don't have the talent to keep up with a lot of these other teams. BYU, Baylor, 4-8, TCU at 5-7, Arizona State, newcomers as well to the Big 12 at 5-7. Colorado, of course, all eyes on Colorado this year. Every team, it's their Super Bowl. I don't think that they do bad. I think that they make a bowl game, but I also don't think that they are going to be the world beaters that they think that they are. They did add some talent to the offensive line, but is it enough to keep Shedeur Sanders upright? That remains to be seen. And their defense was also atrocious as well. So this is going to be a really tough task for them to even make it to 6-6. Let's pump the brakes on the hype train for Colorado. Texas Tech behind a really, really solid backfield. Taj Brooks, 7-5. Iowa State at 7-9. Rocco Becht is someone that I'm really looking forward to for the future in the NFL. UCF. A lot of people have UCF at 5-7 or 4-8. I can't see it. They had a tremendous transfer period, a tremendous recruitment. They got KJ Jefferson in there. I think they have a really, really solid season in the Big 12. West Virginia at 8-4, led by Garrett Green. I think they are ready to take that next step. Oklahoma State, a slight step back here at 8-4. Again, I just think the influx of talent, you're going to be facing a lot of great teams. It's going to be difficult. Kansas State at 9-3, Kansas at 9-3. I think I have over Kansas State just because if Jalen Daniels can stay healthy, they have Devin Neal in the backfield. This is a really, really talented Kansas team. If everyone can stay healthy, they're going to make some real noise. Utah at 10-2, making the Big 12 championship in their debut season. Same thing with Arizona in their debut season. A lot of people have Utah beating Arizona, and I get 29-year-old Cam Rising is coming back fully healthy this year, but with Noah Fafita and this offense and defense that they have, I mean, Tidiora McMillan, Takario Davis on the defensive side, they just have an unbelievable squad of NFL talent. I don't see how anyone else could really keep up with them. Their offensive line is great. Imagine if they would have kept Jordan Morgan for one more year, how awesome they would be. They would be considered national title contenders. I honestly think that that's serious, but Arizona for me at 11-2 win the Big 12 in their debut season. Moving over to the SEC, the Mac Daddy of them all, of course. So this was incredibly difficult to do. This took the most time, and it drove me crazy. I probably lost some hair, and I lost some sleep over this conference. This was unbelievably difficult. Vanderbilt at 3-9 was the easiest part. Kind of the same thing with the bottom five. It was pretty easy for the most part. Mississippi State 4-8, South Carolina 4-8. Arkansas 4-8. Those teams just can't keep up with everyone else. Auburn at 5-7. Peyton Thorne just isn't it for me. Florida at 5-7. Billy Napier he's getting his ass absolutely kicked out the door after this year. I feel bad for Florida. I think they have a really solid squad. It just sucks that they're in the SEC and I believe they have the hardest schedule in the nation. It's really difficult. I can't see them winning. This was generous. I mean, looking through the schedule a couple days ago, I thought they were going to go 3-9. And there were a couple teams, there's going to be a couple games where they probably win that they shouldn't. That goes for every team for the most part. So I have Florida at 5-7, Kentucky at 6-6, Tennessee. A lot of people see them as playoff contenders. I'm very middling with them. This whole anywhere from 9 to 4 was really, really difficult to rank. But I have Tennessee at 7-5. You know, new quarterback, really tough. I'm not even going to try and say his name. I'm sorry. I butcher names as it is. Not even going to try. Nico L. So I think it's going to be a transitional period for them after Joe Milton, and maybe next year they could be playoff contenders. I don't think it's going to be this year though. Oklahoma, newcomer to the SEC at 8-4. I think they have a little bit of a rough transitional period. Jackson Arnold looks to be absolutely legit. Missouri take a slight step back here at 9-3, but a tremendous squad. Luther Burden, Brady Cook. They got a great squad of guys there. Alabama at 9-3, 6th in the SEC. When was the last time you saw that? Yes, I do believe that this transitional period after, Kalen DeBoer has monumental shoes to fill, like unbelievable shoes to fill. Nick Saban, that's like Didi Gregorius stepping in for Derek Jeter. You have Hall of Fame shoes to step in. It's going to take a little time. Alabama has a relatively soft schedule, but they do have some opponents that I really do think they're going to have trouble with. Obviously, Georgia. I think Texas and LSU give them trouble too. Sorry, not Texas. Oklahoma and LSU give them trouble as well. I think that they're going to miss out on the college football playoffs. I know. I said it. I think that they're going to miss out. Texas A&M at 9-3 had an amazing recruitment and transfer portal period. I just think it's not enough with some of the talent on these top 4 teams. Ole Miss at 10-2, an unbelievable talented team. The transfer portal, they won the transfer portal 100%. They got so many great players. They got Princely Uman-Milan as well. Princely Uman-Milan and Walter Nolan on the defensive line itself is unbelievable. I know that they lost Quashon Judkins, but I don't even think it's going to matter with the weapons that they have. LSU, a lot of people are sleeping on LSU. I think Garrett Nussmeier is that guy. I think he's going to be able to step up, and he's not going to be able to fully fill those shoes that Jaden Daniels. Wow. A lot of words here. Jaden Daniels did last year. Obviously, he won the Heisman. I don't expect Garrett Nussmeier to win the Heisman, but with the protection that they have on the offensive line, with the weapons that they possess, with the defense that they possess, I think that they are in a fabulous position to make the college football playoffs. Texas make the SEC championship game against Georgia at 10-2. I think Texas is 100% legit, and this is coming from a Texas A&M fan. Texas is absolutely legit. They have all the talent in the world to go all the way, and I fully expect them to make a deep run. And then, of course, Georgia. This schedule is not as easy as last year, but Georgia is just kind of like they're gonna get shit done. That's just how Georgia is. It doesn't matter who they are going up against; they are going to get it done. And I think Georgia goes 13-0, and they are the number 1 overall seed heading into the college football playoffs. So now we are going to head over to the 12 teams that I have in the college football playoffs. Please don't kill me. So this is it. This is my 12 teams for the college football playoffs, the inaugural 12-team college football playoff. With the first round bye at the number 1 overall seed, I do have Georgia. Number 2 overall seed. Well, if you guys don't know how the college football playoffs, the 12-team seeding works, it's the 5 top-seeded conference winners get an automatic bid. So obviously top 4, SEC, Big 10, ACC, Big 12, those are the first round buys. Those are the conference winners here. Those are the 1, 2, 3, 4 seed in order: Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State, and Arizona. And then here, I didn't seed them, and I apologize, but we have Oregon at 5, Texas at 6, LSU at 7, Utah at 8. I have Ole Miss at 9, Penn State at 10, Notre Dame at 11, and we have the Mountain West Conference winners at the last seed, Boise State. Now, of course, obviously some huge names are missing, the 2 being Michigan and Alabama. I think the fact of the matter is 9-3 is not going to be good enough to get you into the college football playoffs now. I really think that. I think that this year with open play, with no divisions for most conferences, it's going to be really, really tough to win 10 games, and I think that this is the cream of the crop. I think that these 12 teams are the cream of the crop. Now, the 12th seed was a little bit difficult for me. It could be Liberty. It could, crazy to say. I don't think it would ever be, but with 11 wins projected, it could even be Texas State. That would be insane. Imagine if Texas State make the college football playoffs, but Alabama and Michigan don't. That would be absolutely insane. But I do think Boise State has a tough enough schedule, and they're going to be a good enough team that they're going to be ranked high enough to make the college football playoffs with that 12th seed. Like I said before, Liberty can go 13-0. We've seen a 13-0 team miss out on the playoffs before. I know it's expanded this year, but I think Liberty just have such a cookie cutter schedule that I think the committee is going to look at Boise State and go, yes, this team is better than Liberty. So unfortunately, this is the first round draw. So like I said, the teams on the left have a first round bye. The number 5 seed Oregon Ducks host Boise State. That is an unfortunate draw for Boise State. Texas hosts Notre Dame. LSU hosts Penn State. And Utah hosts Ole Miss. So that is the first round, and the results I have here are Oregon, Texas, LSU, and Ole Miss go through. I think Ole Miss, they have a fantastic enough offense that they're going to be able to get through Utah. Tough defense, tough team overall. LSU, I think, has exactly what I said too. Even though Penn State's tough, really tough defense, I think LSU has more than enough firepower on defense to get through. Oregon, I feel like that's just a really unfair draw for Boise State, but that's how it is. And then, honestly, the best matchup in the first round for me would be Notre Dame and Texas, and I do think Texas get it done. Again, more than enough firepower on offense. Even though their run game will come into question, on defense, they are uber talented. So for the quarterfinals, and these are bowl games here. So I don't remember off the top of my head which bowl game goes where. I don't remember which one it is. I apologize in advance, but we have number 1 Georgia against number 9 Ole Miss. We have number 2 Ohio State against number 7 LSU. Number 3 Florida State against number 6 Texas. And then number 4 Arizona against number 5 Oregon in the quarterfinals. We're moving over to the semifinals. I do have Texas advancing over Florida State. I do have Oregon advancing over Arizona. That would be an unbelievable matchup. And you want to talk about unbelievable matchups. Let's take a look at these semifinal matchups here real quick. Texas taking on Georgia, and then Oregon and Ohio State. You want to talk about a barn burner of a matchup, a rematch of, this would be the 3rd time in my simulation that they would face each other this year. So can Oregon actually pull off the upset over Ohio State? Ohio State is still undefeated at this time, so is Georgia. And then going to the national championship game, no, I don't think. I think Ohio State is too OP. Same thing with Georgia. They've been here before. They know how to win. And experience honestly goes that extra mile for me. So I have Georgia. I have Ohio State in the college football national championship game. I know, super not original, but I think when it comes to college football, there's a lot less parity than in the NFL. I think that if a team is good, they're going to go all the way. We've seen that in how many years past. Look at LSU, look at Georgia, look at Alabama. How many times have they been unbelievable and they go all the way and they win? Ohio State even. So this is my 2025 national championship game. I have Georgia taking on Ohio State, 2 undefeated teams. I believe that they'd be 15-0 at this point. Going for that first ever 16-0 season, I believe it would be first ever 16-0 season. And I do think Ohio State wins the 2025 national championship. I kind of hinted towards it when I was talking about Big Ten play, but Ohio State just have an absolutely unbelievably loaded roster of talent. It's going to be tough for any team, even Georgia, to keep up with this firepower on offense. And then defense, of course, they are just absolutely unreal. I mean, defensive line, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer. They have Sonny Styles, who's probably going to play linebacker as well. They just have an unbelievable team from top to bottom. Denzel Burke in the secondary. Of course, I'm just naming a few names. I'm not going to name every single player, but Ohio State, to me, from top to bottom, has the best team in college football, and I think that it proves true. I think that they win the college football championship, and then, like, 20 of those players go on to the NFL after those NIL deals run out. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There is my record predictions and college football playoff predictions for the 2024-25 college football season. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'm sure I'm going to have some angry college football fans in my comments, and I'm fully prepared for it, fully prepared to defend myself. But thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.